What's going on,
Yo,
everybody? Welcome to another episode of Save the Date. This is exciting because we have two special guests. For those who don't know, I'm Heath.
Jamie, I was good.
Yes, yes, yes. And we're joined by the Old School Love Lounge. We have Stacy
Hello, hello.
and Toni.
Hey, hey, hey.
Yes, and before we get started, always a little brief housekeeping at Save the Date Now, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Our YouTubes are doing pretty well. A lot of YouTube shorts for our podcast clips, and also TikTok, where Jay and I get to talk about some other adjacent issues related to dating, relationships, sometimes adjacent to the content we publish every Thursday, or sometimes just adjacent to what we want to talk about in the moment. Thank you guys for all your love and support on the TikTok channel because it's been growing and getting a lot of fresh engagement. With that said,
Mm,
I said it real fast, and I just wanted to run right into it. The world has been rocked by a major breakup between
Man.
Meg Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson, and invited Old School Love Lounge, who always has some great insights, just to talk about it so we can have a more robust conversation. So, Stacy, I know me and you were chatting via text and also on TikTok, I think DMs.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with you. You were telling me that you were getting some feedback about the whole situation. Why don't you start with your perspective?
Was. And let me just start by saying this is not a conversation that I wanted to have with my with the man that I'm dating. I just didn't want to really get into it at
Mhm.
all, but he brought it up and I was like, okay, let's do this. And yeah, his sentiment was like a lot of the men that I'm reading online in the
Mhm.
whole discourse, in that, he chose a woman who had, a dating resume full of like bad boys and hip hop, whatever, whatever, and he should have never been with her. He was trying to kind of devalue her. She wasn't good enough for him. They should have never gotten together. They weren't a match, and never once mentioned the fact that, well, he allegedly cheated on her. So maybe my stance was maybe she wanted something different. She wanted to evolve from where she was. I imagine she's dated many other kinds of men. I don't follow her. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's a man at the end of the day. He was somebody that she was interested in. And it seemed like things were going well. They were doing family stuff and he named a boat after her, so I hear.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Bought a house. They bought a house
yeah,
pretty early
yeah.
on in the relationship.
Right. So I was disappointed. Celebrities break up all the time. That was not a big deal to me. It was the discourse around it and the treatment of Megan, the things that were said about her, the infograph or the meme that Toni actually told me about, but then I end up seeing it everywhere. It was just disappointing on the heels of, the news about the rape academy, that CNN report, the women who were recently victimized, killed in the last couple of weeks. Just on the heels of all of that, it was really disappointing.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Yeah, no, that is a lot, totally a lot. There's so much to unpack there, but I wanted Toni to jump in, kind of get Toni's POV, then we can, just start opening up. Jay and I can give ours. Toni, what was your take on everything going on with Meg Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson?
Yeah, Stacy and I, had a discussion about it, and I think, I don't know, my feeling, I'm surprised by the response from the men. Really, I'm surprised by the attitude that they had. Basically that they were happy that he cheated, and that she wasn't deserving of love and respect, and that that conversation kept going back to her past relationships, and just saying that her reputation kind of preceded her and they're not surprised. And I don't know, it was kind of the breakup or the cheating was sort of celebrated,
Hmm,
and
hmm, hmm.
there wasn't much talk about, him being dishonest. So that part, kind of the response, is what surprised me. And then also the response from women. Like I don't think I realized that many of us women see ourselves in Meg the Stallion, in that,
Yes.
when we saw her in such a what appeared to be loving, relationship, how we all were rooting for her because we kind of see ourselves, in her shoes. Like we kind of all want the same thing or wishing for the same thing. And we all were very much in it with her. What I don't think that we realized it until the breakup, and we saw, just how women were, they just couldn't believe it.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the response is what kind of shocked me on both sides, from the men and the women.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, you both bring up some very good points. And in both of your experiences and kind of analysis of the one theme I'm hearing, and jump in if I'm misstating or incorrect, is this idea of she deserves to be punished, or this is a comeuppance, or some kind of karmic retribution for her past deeds and exploits are going to be in quotations, right? Because this is people's opinions, not that she did anything that was criminally liable or really heinous or outrageous by a traditional sense, or even in a scale of what's happened recently the last two weeks, as you mentioned, Stacy. But that's one thing I'm hearing all about her deeds, and kind of this is her karmic retribution. And one of the things that Jay and I have talked about on the podcast here, and he has been adamant about this, is one of the things I appreciate about Jay because of his own personal life experiences. One of the questions we always ask is, when does someone have the right to move on? When does someone have the right to move on from whatever you perceive their experiences are? And I'm not judging or even putting a label on a category in her experiences, but let's just go with your argument. Let's say she dated rappers, did whatever she did with her body, however you perceive it. Let's just go with that argument that it's true. Not that I believe it is. I don't think it is. But if it is true, the way people are saying it, when does someone have a right to move on? Is it 5 years down the line, 10 years? What's the penance? Should I walk around in a circle and recite, 18 Hail Marys for every step I take? Is it that I should write a letter to the president or join an organization, plant trees? What should I do to show the world that I'm ready to and worthy of love because I somehow screwed it off or fucked it off before? Now that I'm being serious, guys, here's my mea culpa. Here's my Broadway act, no pun intended, because I know she's doing Moulin Rouge right now. But here's what I'm doing to show you that I'm serious. And this is a constant issue that happens, whether it's people assessing people who've been quote unquote promiscuous, people who've cheated before and now they're in a new marriage. When does someone get to move on? And one of the things that we talk about here is people have to be careful, because it's my fundamental belief and our fundamental belief that no one has a right to interfere in anyone's redemption story. Who are you to say when someone should be okay with getting the best out of life, receiving the best out of life, especially when it comes to love? Who are you to say that someone is unworthy or they're on a timeline that matters to you or matters to, quote unquote, the way the world works about receiving and understanding and processing love from an ideal situation? And this comes up constantly that we've noticed online that we find to be very repugnant, because ultimately redemption in our spiritual point of view comes from God, and that's your relationship and it's personal, and I don't know anything about it. I'm not going to be standing with you on Judgment Day, assuming for those who do believe in Judgment Day, and if you don't, that's fine. But if you're going to operate from that place, how are you able to determine that someone is okay? That hey guys, I did do that, but now I'm over here. Now, even what I think she did was nothing. She did what young people are doing, making music, having a good time, hooking up, allegedly. In some cases, we know verified by her. In other cases, put on her or made by the people she hooked up with. Why is that a bad thing? Why is that now she's not able to now have a serious and intentional part?
I don't think women get to move on in the eyes of men. I don't think they do. I think they're not forgiven. I think they can't forget a woman's past, i.e. the body counts that men talk about that may or may not be important to them, but they act like it is. I feel like women are still in 2026. There's a different standard.
Mhm.
That double standard is not going away anytime soon. Toni sent me a post, a TikTok by a woman who pretty much kind of sided with the men on the situation. And she even said, women like her don't get to have men like a high value man. They just don't. Even a Meg the Stallion, who's celebrity, she's got her own money, all those
Yeah.
things. Because of her past, she doesn't get that kind of happiness
Yeah.
from a
Well,
woman. A woman said this.
but what is her past? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Right.
Her past is just she had sex.
Right. That's what
That's
we're
her
baffled
past.
by too. Like, we're all doing that. Well,
Yeah.
many people are.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they are, right?
Yeah.
She had sex.
Yeah.
Guys, okay, so where do we go with that? Now, there's things that I think we do with celebrities. I do it too, where you look at a Jay-Z, a Beyonce, fill in the blank, and there's certain ways that they move in the world. And move in the world is whether they're through their products, their services, their brand deals, or even rumors you hear. Obviously, Meg went through a high profile court case, being shot, and that brought out a lot. People like, you lied to, to Gail King, and, that came out. And then also there was accusations of her struggling with alcoholism. So there are things that I think we all do where we see little peeks behind the curtain. You're like, all right, no, I'm not hanging out with Prince. Like things that are coming out now about Prince subsequent to his death, and the Netflix documentary about him being, grooming, and the allegations of grooming. One woman now is saying physically and verbally abusive. Sinead O'Connor made that accusation in the early 90s about Prince, and now it's being confirmed by someone else. Like, nah, this dude, James Brown. So there's little things when you look back, like, oh, no, thank you. That happened with Diddy, right? You look behind that curtain. He showed us what was behind the curtain. We were like, no, thank you. You can keep the baby oil to yourself. So, but you're bringing up a point, because I'm still trying to understand, what did she do wrong that requires her, as you said to me, Stacy, when we were chatting, not to be worthy of love, not to be worthy of honor and respect?
I
I
think
think
Toni can address that, because you talk a lot about how women aren't allowed to own their sexuality.
that's what I was just getting ready to say. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that what she did is that she owns her sexuality, and unfortunately, you can't do that and then be respected at the same time. I mean, she doesn't do anything differently than any other male rapper that we watch and listen to. She does the same thing. And the only difference is that she's a woman. That's the
Mm-hmm,
only thing.
mm-hmm,
And I find it interesting that the conversation is all about her. There's
mm-hmm,
not conversations really about the fact that he cheated. There's not conversations about the fact that he's probably had, if I'm guessing, just as much or more sexual partners probably than she did. And
mm-hmm,
there's
mm-hmm,
no conversation. And I think that, like Stacy said, it's 2026. Why haven't men evolved? Like, why are we still holding women to these ridiculous standards? I mean, if men are out here, having all these sexual partners, and it's okay, they're having them with women for the most part. So
mm-hmm.
that the numbers got to be the same.
Yes.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's crazy that they take her persona, or, her rap, and they make that a reality. And I mean, I've seen some of the videos. She says some stuff that women don't typically say, but at times I told Stacy, sometimes I'm like, good for her for saying what she would do sexually, or all those things. I think we don't see women doing or saying those things, and at times where you might raise an eyebrow. Why are we raising an eyebrow? She's just speaking about who she is as a sexual being, and why isn't that okay? Men do it all the time.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just gonna speak to that piece that we're on right now. Like, I think obviously we know fundamentally men and women are different, and unfortunately, sometimes that comes with double standards. Like what we're talking about right now, a lot of the men who think a woman's past matters, at least sexually, were taught that by women, by the women in their family. So it's not something that they just were born thinking. It's conditioning. If we hear the women in our family say, you know, be careful of the girls who open their legs fast, or the fast girls. Dudes grow up thinking that. So when we get to adult age and we see women who are doing that, that's the stigma that comes with them. Now, I will agree with you in terms of freedom and the right to own and be who you want to be, but that's what comes with it. Like, nobody's really able to just live as free as they want to, especially if you're doing it in a public space. People are always going to have something to say about it. So I don't think it's necessarily real to think that, yeah, even in 2026, a woman can own her sexuality with no kind of feedback from people. Some of it's going to be positive, some of it's going to be negative, but like, you're putting it out there for people to comment on. So people are going to talk about it.
Yeah, that was the thing too, the public nature of what she wrote. I'm sorry, guys, I was listening to you, but I was also looking for what she wrote, because I don't like misquoting people. Well, she said cheating, and then saying, cold feet, and I dealt with your horrible mood swings. And everyone was like, okay, why should we be talking about this? And said it was published publicly. So once you put it out there, then you can talk about it. And then, of course, with Meg, even he was quiet with Meg. You know, she was posting the pictures of the house. She was posting the pictures of the pieces, and that's fine. That's the nature of the relationship. That's who Megan is. She's a popular person. 33 million people on Instagram follow her. And I think he just is a really good basketball player, an accomplished, a whole future Hall of Famer who has kept a kind of, low profile. And the reason I wanted to bring up the public piece, as you know, you guys both brought it up, is just about how this whole entire ordeal to me has become a proxy for the gender war. Like you said, Toni, I think women see themselves as Megan, the woman who is qualified, good looking. You bring your best to your relationship every day, of a year. You're together a year and a half, and then someone says, or you discover you've been cheating. And some men, I think, don't maybe see themselves as Klay because they ain't got the bank account, they ain't got the 100 million, but they get behind the high value man a little bit more as well because of what's been happening the last 5 years around that language. Andrew Tate, Kevin Samuels, other gentlemen, other pundits in the manosphere who've been marketing high value men, some of the women in the manosphere who've been marketing high value men. And so now everyone's using this as a proxy war, really to get at each other once in a while, but in a very inflamed way, a scary way to me, where we're getting away from, as you said when we opened, we'd hope that now when we're talking, there'd be some improvement in the gender war, but it's just showing you how bad it's really gotten and how disaffected and angry people truly are. And I think Meg and Klay's story, no matter what we put out there, no matter what they put out there, we're putting and imposing our viewpoints on it because it's like, no, this needs to stop. And my homegirl was cheated on, or this needs to stop. She tried to victimize a good dude. And Jay and I did say, because there was a rumor that Klay had said that she was asking for 7K a month. And Jay was like, no, no. Like, I need to see the paperwork on that for me to believe that she was asking for that kind of money. Like, she's accomplished and got her own dough. That doesn't seem like even a starter conversation for someone of her caliber. She's a budding media mogul.
And it goes against her brand. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
she's all about, to me, women empowerment and, celebrating her being strong and this. Like, I think that would be antithetical to her brand to go on record and ask for money to be a girlfriend.
Yeah, and 700K. And I just, again, like I said, I just think a lot of people are just putting things out there to play the I gotcha game. And especially as you were saying, Stacy, with Megan, it's quite crazy. And it's just reminding me of just how important this whole conversation is to letting out the steam so that we can have real conversations. Because some men are never going to be Klay. A lot of us aren't. And a lot of women aren't going to be Megan. But you can be an accomplished, and you could be accomplished grocer. You can be an accomplished pianist or whatever, fill in the blank, and still get hurt, but also still have a thriving relationship with somebody where you're also posting the keys to a house that you've bought together and having a life together, going to gala events and enjoying each other's company.
I have never, ever heard so many women say women hate men as much as I have in like the last month.
Okay.
Men hate women. Sorry, I said that backwards. Men hate women.
It certainly does feel that way in light of this, their breakup. When you hear what men are saying, it's like you can't possibly, like women and have these feelings.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah, no, that's very real. I think, so there's a statistic going around now for the last week and a half on Instagram, how they're saying that they've done research among men 20s to 30s, and the research is showing that men actually like women more than women like men. That's coming out now. That's being marketed in the Instagram. Now, I don't know where that statistic is coming from, but you hear it once, and then you hear it from multiple podcast people. And I get to a point where, unless I'm looking at the actual journal article or the research, I kind of just, okay, that's just what's being batted around now. No problem. I'm not saying it's false. I'm not saying it's untrue. I'm just saying it's hard for me sometimes to hold it as a deep truth because I need more verification, especially when it comes to the internet. Look at Trump. He'll have you believing he can fly and heal people as a doctor in 2000 BC robes, of 0 BC robes. So yeah.
Do you understand the sentiment?
Yeah, though. No, absolutely. Yeah.
Understand, like, comprehend, or understand, like, feel the
Like,
same
know
way?
where it's coming from. Do you understand where that's coming from?
The men hating women. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where a lot of these brothers are coming from, but I can see how people perceive that. There is just a lot of hate. I think the reactions to what happened with Justin Fairfax, Serena Fairfax, what happened in Shreveport shortly thereafter, and how people felt that the conversation got obfuscated and shifted around a lot. That's I think also what happens with these conversations around progress, and also what Tony's saying around sexuality, women's sexuality, where, wait a minute, all I did was did what you did, which is just had sex. That's it. I didn't steal money. I didn't run up the numbers. I didn't, exchange names for Epstein so he can get data and information on people. All I did was have sex. And now I'm being viewed a certain way and pigeonholed into what I was saying in the opening. Well, now you're not entitled to love. Now you can't get married and have children. And if you do have children, oh, you had a complicated pregnancy? Well, I'm just saying, I don't know why. I mean, these ways in which we're drawing these conclusions and making these inferences about people based on what we consider to be bad behavior. Like Jay said, I think some of this is coming from the puritanical nature of American culture, of the quasi-Christian culture, the evangelical culture that has found a way to even get its tentacles even into the Black church and Black people, where you have not acted morally, you have not acted according to God's commands, and so whatever happens to you happens to you. And this is a big thing that I still see in the culture, that women have to act right in order to receive the best. And if you don't act right, then hey, say la vie, take care. Whatever happens, happens. And I think that sentiment, I get how women are perceiving that men hate women, because it's a lot of language. There's a segment of the male population, I don't want to say all, a segment that is very focused on trying to snap us back into a particular era. I have a friend of mine, she's actually a social worker, and she sat me down and she says, what do you think is happening here post-COVID? A lot of people are going to black and white thinking because there's too much chaos going on, and this is a trauma response. And she's like, everything you see online with race, with gender, it's all black and white thinking to try to control and to bring things back to some quote unquote level of normalcy, which you and I and everyone on this call knows that's not going to happen. I'm not going back to the 1950s. I don't care how great you're trying to make America. I'm not going back to the 1800s. So, and I can imagine other people from other groups where you're part of the LGBTQ community, women community, gender community, they're not going back either. So, that's a non-starter. So you're going to have to start somewhere else with me. How about start with honoring my humanity, and we can go from there. But I think then you have a segment of saying, well, then if that's where you're going to start, then here comes the judgment and here comes the fire and brimstone way. Mm-hmm. But say some more, Stacy, about how you're feeling.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the word, you threw out the word control, and I definitely think that is what some men, the segment of men that you're referring to, want. They want to control women, whether it's how we're dressing, what we're doing in the bedroom, how we're living our lives. There's the respectable woman, and then there's the other group who Megan falls into. And I think it's just another way to control. And some of the women, they've been conditioned to believe that as well. Toni and I are of the minds that we let people live, you know what I mean? And without judgment. And so I can't get with that at all. I think Meg deserves love. Klay deserves love. And
Absolutely.
maybe they're not supposed to be together, but let's not devalue her in the process of this breakup. She wasn't good enough because of her past. Or the way she dressed, or what she did in a video, or her lyrics, or whatever. I've heard it all.
For all we know, I mean, that's may not even be who she is really. You know what I mean? It's just could be who she is, her brand, or like I said, her persona. Oh, it could be that, but again, it's sad the way that men are coming out against her and saying that she deserved this, or that she wasn't marriage material. That part right there is. I'm shocked. I really am. I don't know why. I think I shouldn't be, but I'm shocked by the statements that men have been saying about her. And I think, I don't know, it's just surprising to me. And it's like, where do we go from here? You know what I mean? Like what? And I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if, honestly, it doesn't matter if you're a Meg the Stallion or if you're a
Yeah.
Beyonce or, it doesn't matter. I think a lot of times we are not holding men accountable. Like I have so many questions about how they even got to that point. Like, how do you buy a house, buy a boat, and then, in the next breath, you don't want to be monogamous. Like, at what point did you? And my other thought is like, did he change his mind because of his male peer group? Like, was that part of it, or is it because he truly doesn't want to be monogamous because he has all these options? And did those options come from him being with Meg? Like, what they say is like, if a man is, with a woman who's, beautiful or popular or, she's the it girl, it attracts other women. And I know he's a ball player. So like that in
Yeah.
and of itself will,
Yeah.
bring him a
Yeah.
lot of women.
Cachet.
But
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
did she raise his value in the eyes of other women? And is that why he now wants to be in a non-monogamous relationship? There were so many questions that I have, and I don't think the focus has been too much on her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I hear y'all, but I don't know how it could be on anyone else when she's publicizing all of the information about their relationship. He hasn't claimed her publicly. He hasn't put anything on his page. Everything we know about their relationship came from her. So it's like, I don't even really know what we could say about him other than what she's talked about. We don't know if he really cheated or not. We don't know if they were really together or not. We know what we saw on social media. And what I was talking to Heath about was it reminded me of when I was young and, obviously I didn't have this in my bank account, but it's things you do to acquire a girl. Like men are trained to perform. We're trained to gesture. So a lot of the times we're just doing things that we are told we are supposed to do to get a girl. It may not even really mean anything to us. It's just we're performing, we're acting. And so I think sometimes you have to be careful about being taken by gesture. Because a lot of the times dudes are doing things because they think this is what it takes to get you, not to keep you, just to acquire you. And if you are a person who is just trying to be chosen, you might take that, not thinking about what's on the other side of that.
So are you saying that he bought the house, the boat, and all those things in order to get her? Like, what are you saying exactly?
I'm saying he's just performing. It's just gestures to him. I mean, I don't know if y'all remember this episode on Martin when him and Gina broke up and he met Lark Voorhees and, they all talking about he's going to take her on a date, what he's going to do. And he's like, oh, I'm going to take her where you take all the girls, to Shea Maurice's, because that's where you take the girl that you're trying to impress. So you do these things, you make these gestures that you think are going to impress a girl. At his income bracket, buying a house is nothing. Getting a boat is nothing. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, those are the gestures that a lot of men will make sometimes to just impress a woman.
Introducing him to the family too?
This just a
Oh.
gesture. You have to know what someone's intentions are behind their act. This is the reason why we say you can't just listen to someone, what they say. You can't just watch what they do. You got to do both and make sure they line up. Action should really correspond to words that someone's telling you. So just because I'm performing and I'm doing these things, it may not mean the same thing to me that it does to you.
Yeah, almost like, well, if I got it like that, so then I can do it. I got
I
money
can
for
do-
a
yeah.
$2 million house.
So what's that to me?
Yeah, it's interesting because I wondered, and now this is me speaking my perspective on the situation, outside of the criticism of Megan, which I totally disagree with, and I'm in alignment with a lot of what everyone's saying here. I wondered how much of this was a whirlwind romance you got with her. It was fun. It was exciting. Y'all are going hard. You're going heavy. Because I remember I told Jay when I saw that she had posted they bought a house, I was kind of like, oh, that's a little too early to be buying a house. Coming from my POV, limited as it is. You may want to give that out for like a year or two. Nothing wrong with buying a house for somebody. If you got it like that, you got it like that. Your man Lil Wayne said, it ain't tricking if you got it.
If you got it, right.
If you got it, and he got it. He's over $100 million in his earnings in his career, plus other endorsements. So, he's got to park his money somewhere. And if you're with somebody, why not put it in this house? Totally makes fine to me. I was just wondering how much of that is you're just so excited in the beginning and you're doing this. And then, that pressure slowly starts to dissipate. And now you have to deal with a human being, a person who may have stinky feet, may have some mental health issues. They're busy. I was telling Jay, how do they even spend time in that house where he's on the basketball schedule and she's always touring and doing, like I said, she's a budding media mogul. She's always on the go. Like, how are they like spending time together and connecting and actually building a relationship. She's not a stay-at-home wife, and she's never going to be that. I wouldn't expect her to be. She's going to be probably one of the more prominent, if she stays on this trajectory, like I said, big musical media presence, whatever, in the next 20 years. She's just getting started. So how do you guys make time to really get to know each other and spend time together and date? Now, they may tell us they did, maybe they don't. I don't know. I just questions I have. And I wondered how much of this was hot and heavy in the beginning. You made some commitments, you did some things, and then maybe, now you're trying to extricate yourself out of this situation, remove it, and you either default to old habits with cheating. I don't know if cheating means the full Monty of coitus, or if it's, I caught you, or someone told me that they've been seeing you talking to someone, because that could be cheating too, right? Emotional affairs. You've been, having, relationships with people. You've been going on dates. What the hell is going on here? You haven't told me anything. And then you tell me, well, I'm not really ready for monogamy. So I'm wondering what was being said and what are the tensions there, because I've seen this happen in everyday life where people get super excited to be with somebody. Then the realities of having to do things together makes sense. I've heard this with women, right? We get married, and then now you think marriage is going to be free sex with me, but I need you to take out the garbage. The rent has to be paid. We go into my mother's house for Thanksgiving. Did you pack your luggage? And now I feel like I'm nagging. Now I feel like I'm dragging you along because you thought this was just going to be, freak
Free
fest.
lunch.
Yeah, 2000 for the next 30 or 40 years of our life. And it's not going to work like that, homie. There's work that has to get done here. And for some people, when the work comes in, hey, listen,
Ready to
man,
talk too.
when someone starts crying because, I was telling Jay, she lost both her parents, first her father, then her mother, all before the age of 20. I know what that's like. I lost, a parent very early on. So when someone starts crying and you want to go out and they start crying and having a breakdown, now that's where the real work starts. I know somebody who was getting married. Their spouse has a chronic condition, and they were told in the hospital, yeah, I know y'all getting married and y'all gonna have a great time together, but this is part of it too. Being in the hospital with this chronic issue that she's gonna have. It's not gonna just go away. So this is what I'm wondering, how much of work gets involved with people. And I've noticed that sometimes once someone says, hey man, I have debt, these are my issues, can I borrow your car? People start going, hey, yo, wait a minute, the fun is gone, and now the real work of trying to manage a relationship begins, and people aren't ready for it. Again, that's my POV on that. Go ahead, please.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, these are adults. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
both been in multiple relationships. I mean, if they went into it thinking that it's going to be exciting and fun all the time, which I can't believe they would think that, they have to know that there's some work that is involved in this relationship. And even if what you said is true, as far as, what is his name, Klay? I don't even know his
Yeah,
name.
yeah.
As far as Klay is concerned, if he didn't want to be in it, the responsible thing to do is to not cheat his way out of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think they're adults doing adult things. Like, and again, we're not talking about his infidelity in in this monogamous relationship that he set up with Meg Thee Stallion. Again,
We
the
can't.
focus is not on that.
But we can't, because we don't know if he actually cheated. We don't know if they were really together.
Okay. Well, we saw them.
And again, all we know about the relationship is what we saw from her social media. So we don't, like Heath is saying, we don't really know what the cheating entails. So I don't know if we can really talk to it. And if we did talk to it, what would we say?
But I think that here what I think what we were originally talking about is the fact that the response was so great. Nobody knows what the real relationship was.
Right.
But the response to the breakup and the alleged cheating, it was more than significant.
Mhm.
It was all up and down my social media. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So there's something to
Still
be
is.
said about the fact that women are tired of these type of relationship dynamics, and men still have attitudes that take us back many generations. You know what I mean? So right, we don't know what the real story is, right? But assuming that what is true, we're still focusing on a woman's sexuality, and we're not focusing on holding this man accountable. if all things were true.
Yeah. Assuming her story's accurate from from her POV, he hasn't released his. But no, what Stacy led with in the opening of this conversation is, like we said, and I said it. I know Jay and I've talked about it offline. Is the horrendous part of it? This idea that she doesn't deserve to be with somebody of his quote unquote caliber because of either past behavior, song lyrics, or just general demeanor. People have a perception of her. And if your perception is X, then you don't get to be with someone. And like Stacy's saying, there's men and women saying this. And one of the things Jay and I've been trying to emphasize in our own kind of work, making our way through this work, is this whole idea of ideologies and people having ideologies where they have these conclusive narratives about how the world should be structured, i.e. men saying, well, this is why women have to go back to a certain era, because there's an ideology that if we just put women or freeze women in this era, then this is when the world will be, moral order will be restored. I always say, and I joke with Jay, it's funny how the moral order back then wasn't restored, but you were just, doing 5,000 lynchings and Jim Crow and Middle Passage. But the moral order was fine back then. But now because someone showing their breasts on TV, the moral order is off. Okay. But you got 56 million Native Americans killed in 100 years. Moral order wasn't fine. Okay over there. It was okay over there. Now, because someone wants to pop that poochie, doo-doo brown, now the moral order is off. And so much of what we talk about is how much of the moral order is connected to sex. I remember working with a woman I hired. She was Hindu. And I was telling her, I was like, yeah, we were having this conversation about religion. And I was like, yeah, America's somewhat of a Christian nation. She goes, really? You could have fooled me. That's because we have girls gone wild. Because people's minds, the moment some drunk woman is showing her breasts to get some beads in Mardi Gras, that tells me your whole entire situation is toxic. Your entire country is for filth. But when you murder over 100 million people, and if that's all you have all those bodies on your country's gun, no matter what nation we're talking about, but let's talk about America, well, then the moral order is fine. That's just acceptable. Killing, murder, death. And now I don't have a critique about your country because your women are in check and they're having babies. And so the way we really have a sex politic and a gender politic that is about control and a certain type of status or order that needs to be there. And if we're not careful, I tell Jay all the time, we take the loss of life so frivolous in this country. Just another dead body. You man can't bust it. Niggas die every day.
B. For
Niggas
real.
die every day. That is
That's the
literally
sentiment.
how we think as Americans. Never thinking about what kind of sin, if we're going to use that term, is being caused by all this death. Yet we'll look at a song or someone's orgy or someone's polycule or polyamorous relationship and say, whew, Jesus is about to come back any day now. Well, how come he didn't come back when cats was getting dragged on the boat?
Right. Very true. On the hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, we're going to, yeah. But brothers getting graped on the boat. Bodies getting thrown off. Sharks following the smell of slave ships. It was fine then. It was all commerce. It was all good just a week ago. But now, well, once I know that this woman could sleep with so-and-so, and try to sleep with me, now I know, you know what I'm saying? I'm ready to go to heaven. Now I'm chilling. I'm chilling. We're good. And so I totally hear you guys are saying about the ways in which this perception is driving people into insanity, and people's antennas are up where they're like, hey, I don't even want to date. And I'm hearing that now. Jamie and I are hearing that now from women that we know. Hey man, I'm good. I even had to ask a friend of mine. I was like, how do y'all like, don't y'all want to have sex? And she was like, well, because this is a woman who's been abstinent. And she's like, yeah, but for a lot of us, for women, not all women, it's emotional. And so if you're not connecting with me emotionally, I'm good. I can just get up and go, and I got other things to do. I got businesses to start, children to raise, voting to do. I can entertain myself. Whereas like, I know for me, after a while, if that was me, then it's just like, I'm chewing on the carpet. So it's interesting to see how women and men do frame this. I do think, and Jay and I have talked about this, and we're about to do an episode called The Boy and the Men. And I don't know if you guys have seen also with Rock the Internet, the Michael Beasley interviews with Shannon Sharp. There's a lot of pain in men from their childhood, and people say father issues, mother wounds, the way they were judged. And there needs to be more dialogue about this. And I'm bringing this up not to distract from Megan or what you're saying, but to also bring about what I think is behind some of this. behind some of this control language is a loss of self and purpose. And it's being lost for, various different reasons. Because in my women's group, that I have this group of 5 women I know, we talked about this. And one of the things I sent them was the Michael Beasley interview where he's crying because his mother had lied to him about his father. He meets his father when he's 25 and he's crying on the Shannon Sharp interview. And once I realized my father was looking for me and I was looking for him, it was different. She had all these random dudes in my life. I didn't want them. I wanted my dad. And he's crying on the interview. He goes, I shut my family down for 3 years. He comes back to reunite with them. And his mother has stage 2 cancer. Turns out she was lying. She had stage 4 cancer and she dies. And he's so racked by that, so messed up by that. If you guys haven't seen the clip, watch it. He's not saying anything negative about Meg or women, but it just shows you that I sent it to Jay. There's a lot of men I know dealing with stuff like a lot of men.
So
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, so when you ask, do we understand the sentiment? Some of us have mother wounds. Some of us, have also been hurt. And yeah, I don't think it should ever come to hate, but I definitely can feel within the community just like a visceral distaste, between Black men and women, or just, men and women at large. And I think the sentiment comes from, I don't even know if it makes sense to cite this statistic, but there's a statistic that talks about how the front lines of, child abuse, a lot of it is done by mothers because they're the primary caregiver. Like it happens in childhood. So if you just think about that numbers wise, there could be a lot of men who have a mother wound who don't get it addressed, like he's talking about. They go through life with all of this pain and then they become someone else's problem. We're not justifying the behavior, but I think it's, if we're curious sometimes about what spurs the behavior, maybe we could have more holistic and deeper conversations about it. But sometimes I feel like, I'm actually sometimes really surprised when I hear women say that they feel like men are trying to control them when, I mean, since I've been alive, women have made like these incredible strides. And in my thinking, I'm just like, if this was such a patriarchy, it would have taken men to open the door for that. So if men are in favor of women being strong, just clearly by action, things that were, legislated for women to have power, to be able to go to school, get credit cards, vote, all these different things. Like if men had to open the door for that, I think that shows that men are in favor of women being powerful. Now, obviously, you're going to have some who buck that, but to say that men are still trying to control women when they have been, supported the rise of women in this country, sometimes I just get surprised when I hear that.
Maybe it's those men in power that they're referring to politically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you said a lot there. And I wanted to comment on, well, first, when you talked about men, having hurt or having pain, I think that's apparent, right? We see that by the things that men say. That could be the only reason why they respond the way that they do, because they are hurting. I don't know. I mean, you talked about men having mother wounds, and I think that
And father wounds.
unfortunately, well, yes, that's what I was going to say, that a
Yeah.
lot of times, again, like the fault goes to the woman first. And in most cases, there's not enough emphasis put on the father who isn't there for whatever reason, right? I mean, women a lot of times are doing the best that they can. And then, kids end up resenting them for that, when the whole time, there hasn't been a father present in the household, but we focus on the one parent that is there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we just have to be mindful of, of young men who do that and then grow up to become adults,
Yeah. And I just want to make this clear, Toni, I don't blame, like I don't want the language to come off like I'm blaming women. I'm just saying, like, if that is the parent that's in the home, that's the one we can talk about. We can't talk about an absentee father if he's not there and we don't know the reason. So
Well,
like,
well, we
if
should be talking about the absentee father, though. That's
but we
all.
like, but to your point, if we don't know why they're absent, we can't talk about it. If it's a thing where the mother doesn't want them there, what would we say? If it's a thing where legally they can't be in the child's life because of the mom's decision, like what can we say?
True.
So I'm just so in situations where, and I'm just saying that to help you understand sometimes how men who were little boys who were hurt grow up to become men who have this disdain towards women. So, and it's not to, again, it's not to justify anyone's behavior,
Yes,
what they
yeah,
say from
horrible
that,
thinking.
but it's just to help you understand where it comes from. Like, there's always an origin story. And I think sometimes, to your point, we focus on one side or the other, and we'll say, if it's a woman, she was a single mother and she had to go through all these things, and we'll uphold that narrative. Or if it was an absentee dad, we'll just call him a deadbeat, and we'll have all of these things that we say about him, but we're not curious and taking the time to ask questions and try to understand what led to this person being the way they are. Like, at least to bring it back to Meg and Klay, like, I don't know if y'all know anything about the Showtime Lakers, but like, they were the hottest ticket in the late 80s, early 90s, LA. His dad played for that team. So what kind of things he probably had to see growing up. Not to say, that his dad was a cheater or anything like that, but like, if you're in that arena and you're around Magic Johnson and all these other big names, and you see the way that the Playboy Club was right next to them back in the day. So it's like, they had access, and they probably saw all of these different things, how men treat women, how women respond to men. And it's like, that's traumatizing. A boy will grow up thinking it's okay to be a player and to do all of that just because they grew up around it. That's traumatizing. It's like, somebody, instead of just saying, he's a monster because he's a man and he cheated, somebody needs to sit him down and be like, yo, like, what did you see growing up? Let's get curious about why he's behaving this way, as opposed to just, labeling him a monster or an animal, or just, that's just what men do.
Toni, I wanted to go back to what you said about the mom thing, because my biological father was killed when I was very young. And, you're right. This idea that the one who stays is the one who bears the burden, but the one who's not there is the one who's getting away with what it feels like murder. Because what happens is, anything that goes to the court of childhood opinion, which is your child's view of you or the view of the person who stayed, becomes through this lens of, well, why did you do this? Why did you do that? And you're thinking, this was a 2-person job. This other person's just not here to be accountable, but I'm here, and now I'm bearing the burden of a 2-person job. Yeah, I made that decision, but that was at the time when I made this decision with this person. For whatever reason, he's not here, like Jay's saying. And now I'm the one the mom is taking the burden of, well, how come I should have had violin lessons and piano? You took away my piano lessons. Meanwhile, so I took away your piano lessons because it's either that or we weren't going to eat. Well, you could have gotten a second job. I got a second job. The school was going to call ACS on me. Your little brother was living with a disability. Well, you didn't have to have that kid in the first place. What do you want from me at this point? It gets into these very real, almost intractable problems that children deal with, and women deal with, some fathers deal with as well, where you're being judged or assessed for what you didn't have or the best that you gave. So one of the things Jay and I talk about in our private conversations is, I know I had to do this with my parents, is, did they give me the best they had? Yes. Then we're good. We're good. Could it have been better? Yes. It could always be better. It also could be worse. So that's helped me with my own healing journey with my parents and dealing with whatever stuff that I witnessed or saw, where you're like, well, was someone doing their best? If you know they were doing your best, and that's, to me, a sign that they loved me and that they did the right by me. And I get it, because I've heard people talk about their moms, and I'm like, your son, she was just caught up. Or your father, he was just caught up. He didn't have it. It wasn't like, he had 5 million. He was like, no, you can't get this. He got 80 million. You need $1. If you don't get out my face, there's a lot of that kind of issue. My therapist talks about it with awareness. Awareness upgrades the program like a software patch that makes a software run better. Awareness, once you realize, when you went to hug your mom, for example, and she used to wince, it wasn't that she didn't like you. It's that she had early stage arthritis and she didn't want to tell anybody and was going untreated, and she was in pain. So when she used to ask you to sit up and sit in the other part of the dining room, it's because that had the soft seat, and it wasn't about her just telling me what to do. It wasn't her just thinking that I was a bad person. And the wincing wasn't a rejection. It was, she literally was dealing with the onset of a debilitating disease. And so some of these conversations come up, but you also brought up a point in Jay as well. And the conversation you just had is, what this whole thing, going back to proxy wars, taught me is about community. We have made our community bigger than what I think our brains are capable of understanding. There was a guy on Instagram talking about this. Now, right, we are in this large community of supporters of Megan, large community of supporters of Klay, large community of supporters for, patriarchy, anti-patriarchy, MAGA, pro-Democrat. 500 years ago was about the 30 people in your village, the 20 people that you knew. And so it's making me realize these ideologies, I think, are taking up so much space in our minds that it's making us unhealthy. We don't know how to be healthy together. I quoted you recently to somebody, might have been our podcast, about the whole conversation about submission. That, you're going out and you're dating people, and then guys at 60 years old are talking about submission. And you're like, yo, at 60 years old, I ain't dealing with no submission. We dealing with where we're traveling, I think is what you said.
Yeah.
And I brought that up because so many of my women friends are saying they're going on dates and people are parroting talking points from the pundits from their respective ideological corners.
Yes.
As opposed to, son, you're on a date with a woman. Be yourself. Rush Limbaugh ain't got nothing to tell you. Kamala Harris can't help you pay for this dinner. Joe Biden.
A lot of them really feel like that, though. They're just using other people's language.
But I think because we're just so caught up now in being in these ideological spaces that we don't no longer know how to exist in our local spaces as ourselves. I have to tell you now, well, like one person told me, you're a woman and you don't need a man. She's like, well, I have to pay my rent. My son lives with me. Like, what am I supposed to do? Just be homeless on the street until you show up? Like, okay, just don't mind the rats. They'll just like, what am I supposed to do? I have to eat and pay rent. And I think it's the same thing sometimes. Well, it's like the story you told, Jay, of going on a date and a woman's like, I expect you to pay for the dinner. Not even a hello, a nice to meet you. This is our first time meeting you. I left my wallet in the car, so I expect you to pay for the dinner. These ideologies are allowing us to just disregard people's humanity, to go back to the initial point.
Yes.
Who are you to get involved in someone's redemption story? Okay, if she slept with 200 guys and she's married, what's that got to do with me?
Especially when if he was engaging with her, that's something he chose to overlook.
And to be fair to Klay, like I did mention, because now this is coming back to me, he was defending her in the beginning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was defending her against a lot of people saying slanderous things about her. And he was like, people were saying things about her body and he would defend her. So this is what made me think, you started heavy and then the realities of the relationship came in, and then maybe you default to other habits. Let's go with the narrative that he cheated. Maybe, you're used to certain text messages, WhatsApps coming in, and, you start getting light. And then light becomes heavy, and then heavy, you're in trouble.
If I'm understanding correctly, I hear that people were referring to him, well, men were referring to him as a simp early on in their relationship.
Yeah, they were. Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
Because they were talking about she was coming off the heels of dealing with all of these bad boys, some of she had cheated with. I think people were looking at, like you said, her past and how she had kind of moved through certain situations and were like, yo, why with your status would you settle for that? That's how they were coming at him.
That Stacy brings up a good point because they were referring to him as a simp, right, in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as he cheated, he was celebrated. Right? You see how quickly
he came to
I don't think those were probably the same people calling him a simp, though.
The same guy.
I think
it could have been.
I don't know if that would make. Well, I mean, I guess it could have been. I don't know if that would make sense though, because usually those dudes who are calling guys simps, they draw a very hard line, and it's like if they think you're one, that's who they think you are. They like you talked about, a lot of those guys are not evolved. They don't know how to integrate two different sides to someone.
Even if it wasn't the same men that said it, they think the same. It's just the opposite side of the coin. You know what I mean? Because the same guy that thinks he's a simp for being with a woman who has a sordid past or a past that's, her reputation, is not good, is the same guy that will then say, yeah, of course, I'm not surprised that he cheated on her. I mean, she was never wife material in the first place. That's the same dude in my eyes. That's the same guy.
Like you said, a lot of them are hurting. A lot of them are hurting.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to ideologies about moral order. I think the world is in a lot of chaos, and I think people are trying to institute a moral order. It's funny how, in my opinion, and this is just my POV, it's limited, I think a lot of this comes back to the people's sense of ethics and ethical behavior. That's one of the biggest arguments online. It's just not called that.
Yeah.
It's not spelled out like this is moral order. This is about ethical treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Some people do. They go heavy. But a lot of times it's not that. It's about ethics and moral order. They're trying to bring order to chaos. But why do you think there's chaos? And so, like I said before, what is it that you feel are indicators of chaos? What is your default mode about life being off the rails now versus when it was idyllic? Hence the phrase, make America great again. It's bad. When was it great? And so these are all, I think just pertinent questions we have to ask ourselves. And absolutely, I think your points of view that both you and Stacy expressed, and Toni, and I say you because you just spoke last about it, are really getting to the core of questions that we have to keep surfacing, issues we have to keep surfacing about how we're connecting with each other. Because as I mentioned, when I brought up your submission thing to somebody, that made sense to me. Because even Jay and I were laughing, like back in the day, like don't have sex before marriage. Old Black folks who get married at 60, they'd be like, that's for them 20-year-olds.
Right.
I'm going to find out if this machinery still works. I ain't about to get married at 60, find out at 61 you got ED issues, and now I'm stuck here to 85. Now, we ain't about to do 25 years of hell. We're going to have to figure this out and see what's working. Is it on Blue Chew? You on Viagra, Cialis? You need some help?
Some horny goat weed.
Yeah, exactly.
Spanish water.
Testosterone treatments. What do you need, sir?
Brother Roy's, all of that.
Yeah. Because I'm not going to be here. Exactly. Do you need a 2-hour? No problem. 2 hours for the flight to get off. No problem. But I'm not going to be here figuring that out after I do. So, right, some of these social conventions we try to push, like you're saying, don't apply. And as much as I'm into the wisdom of the elders and our traditional Black communities, how can I tell someone at 60 to take that risk?
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, Jay and I we not that we differ on it, but.
So Jamie, what were you going to say? I'm curious now.
If what was right at 40, what makes it wrong at 60? If right is right and wrong is wrong, right should be right at every stage of life. Wrong should be wrong at every stage of life.
You know what? I hear what you're saying, but I would say to respond to that, what was right to me at 40 is not necessarily right to me at 60 because I've lived those 20 years and I have a different perspective now. So those things that were important or that I thought were a part of my value system may not be part of my value system or as important to me as 60 or 50 or whatever.
That to me is the difference between the moral and the ethical. Like I feel like right is right no matter what. Doesn't matter what age we're in. Like if there's a right thing to do in a situation and a wrong thing to do. And I think if it's right not to, be overweight at 10, it's right not to be overweight at 50. It doesn't matter how long I've lived. If it's right to treat people a certain way, like I want to be treated, I think that's right at every stage of the game. I mean, I understand, viewpoints changing, but to me, that doesn't change the standard of right and wrong. Like we could say, I know that it's right to do X, but I'm choosing to do this at 50. But it doesn't change the fact that X is the right thing to do. That's what I'm saying. So if it was right to do at 40, then it should be right to do at any time. To me, that's how I look. So when he said it, I was like, that's what I would ask.
Yeah. And that's why I said
more nuanced than that. I mean, the things that I thought were right at 40, I don't necessarily think they're right at 50. I just don't.
What's an example of that?
Well, when I was in my 20s and I was heavily involved in going to church, I didn't think it was right that, 2 men or 2 women get married. And now I think people should do what they want. I mean,
specifically marriage or be together.
Either one. If that's what you want to do, who am I to say? Or, if it's right for you, it's right for you. You know what I mean? But before I had a stance, well, a man and a woman should be married. And just because it's not for me doesn't mean, now if that's what floats their boat, I don't feel like it's wrong. So that's changed. And so many other things. Like when I was 20, I thought, when I first got married, I was like, I'm going to submit to this man. Now that I'm 55, it's like, are you for real right now? Like what? I mean, again, going back to submission. Yeah. And then when I think about now, how I feel about the whole idea of it, it's very much wrong to me. You know what I mean? Now that I've lived some and, I see that it's rooted in patriarchy, in my opinion. And so much of the whole institution of marriage is as well, but those were all right to me when I was younger and didn't know no better. And now at 55, I'm like, no, it's wrong.
I'm sorry, let me see your ID, please. Can we verify that? Let's verify that, please. No, I hear what you're saying.
Toni at one time believed the man should be the head of the household. I remember those days, and she has evolved and changed, and that comes with experience. All of us change our views, the way we see things based on what we've been through.
Yeah. Stacy, what about you? What's something that's evolved for you?
I think similarly. I don't know that I wanted to be married like Toni did at one time, but I certainly believed in it because my parents are still together. You know what I mean?
Of course.
I have a really great model, you know. So I believe in marriage. I wouldn't push it now on anybody. I would never be like, "Oh, you need to get married." You don't. And I'm probably feeling like a lot of the women friends that you talked to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
recently who are like, "I wouldn't do it
I'm
again."
not doing that. Yeah, it's on right now. I'm not doing that over again. I said, really? He said, nah, sorry. And what one person said was really, it was connected to kind of the yearning or longing for the marriage. So that in your mind, when you're coming up and you're young being, teenage years to 20s, you're yearning, thinking it's going to solve a riddle for you or a problem in your life. So you're yearning, I gotta find my person, I gotta find this man. And then once that's there, it's like Voltron. We're just going to the stratosphere and beyond to realize, like, oh, it's just going to be a thing where someone and I, if we do it right, can build a relationship together, thrive. And that's great, but I can thrive on my own. So why not thrive on my own? Then when I feel like it's right and he thinks it's right, we just continue to thrive. Then it's like this. We're going up, then we go up together. As opposed to, your man Jerry Maguire, you complete me. Ain't no more you complete me's. I complete myself. If we want to do some more completion together, then I'm gonna kick that can down the road and I'll see you when you're down there. If not, I'll keep on kicking it.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is also the thing. And Jay and I've had that conversation too about that longing or that yearning. What do you tell people about who are caught up in that longing and yearning, thinking it's going to really super define their life? And like we said earlier, possibly with Klay, this is just my POV. You get in there and you see that work and you're like, oh, you don't know how to put your clothes in the hamper. How is that possible for a 28-year-old? You don't know how to put clothes in a hamper. How do
Or
you
wipe
know?
your behind properly.
Right? And you're sitting there doing
Superhead,
like,
Karen Steffens had to teach
yeah,
Bow Wow.
how to do his laundry. Yeah, she had to teach him how to do his laundry because he was 20-something-year-old kid who grew up, I guess, child actor, whatever. He didn't know how to do his laundry. Corinne taught him how to do his laundry. But you would think like, nah, you know how to do laundry. No, I don't know how to do laundry. But there's a lot of women who get into marriages where it's like that. Well, I don't know how to cook. We can just put it in the microwave. How to use the microwave? Come on, brother. I'm gonna need you to.
So this is why I can't agree with you about the complete me thing. I feel like as a man, there's nothing greater that I can have than a good woman or any
Mhm.
man. Like I feel like women do complete us. We were created together, and there's a reason why coming back together and sex is so explosive. Like I just feel like women do complete us. Have to. That's where
Mhm.
I'm coming from it, and I think sometimes that's the reason why you get men who act out when things like this happen. Like you get the disappointment of maybe past relationships where they failed, they couldn't
Yeah,
provide
meet
the
the
way that they
standard.
wanted to,
Yeah.
or they couldn't meet a woman's standard, and they know what it feels like to feel not enough or inadequate. And the way that they deal with that is, well, I want you to feel like I do. They get happy when other women are humbled in that way because that's what they're suffering with.
Yeah.
There's a
So
lot.
if you
So
come
we
back,
talking
yeah,
about hurting. What was you going to say? If you come back, what?
you come back humbled, then maybe I, as a janitor, I can have a shot with Meg Thee Stallion.
Mm.
Or whatever woman that I want to have.
Yeah,
But a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
them, a
yeah.
lot of them know what it's like to be told that they are not enough. And I think to your point earlier about seeing ourselves in the situation, a lot of them wish what they're saying about Meg is what they're really saying about the girl that hurt them, or the girl that told them that they weren't enough. It's just them acting out. The same way women are talking about seeing themselves in Meg and talking about how, I know what it's like for a dude to sell me a dream and waste my time and what they call future pump faking now. And
Yeah,
you know what
future
I'm saying?
faking.
So
Yeah.
it's like everyone's kind of seeing themselves, not everyone, but a lot of people are seeing
Yeah.
themselves in this situation. And I think the hurt is coming out probably about other things. And that's
Mhm.
what the commentary around it is really people are exposing their hurt.
Mhm. Yeah. Listen,
100%. I agree with that. Yeah.
But I do want to ask y'all a question though, because something just puzzles me. Would you accept a house from a man who has not proposed to you properly? And I didn't think so.
No.
That's part of the reason why I'm on the fence about believing that she really thought that was going somewhere. Cause like, I just don't know the way I was raised, the women I was raised around is like, you don't accept certain things from somebody who has not claimed you. And so for someone to be, again, making gestures like that, I would ask, why were you so willing to accept these things that we call girlfriend things or wife things when that's not what you were?
You know what? To answer that question, I think, well, one, they have a lot of money, right? So
He does. Yeah, he
Yeah.
does.
I think that for them, they're living in a different reality than most people. So to buy a house, like you said earlier, is probably not a big deal, right? That's one thing. I would say the other thing, the other point that I want to make is that a lot of times there are conversations that a couple will have, like there might have been some conversation about them getting married. Maybe it might have been performative, like maybe it wasn't something that was really going to happen and I say that because I have a friend recently who ended up passing away and we
Oh, I'm
were
Sorry
sorry.
to hear that.
thank you. We were very close, and he was seeing a girl, and I kept saying, "What's going on?" Like he lived in my area, and he was moving to Atlanta, and I was like, "Are you moving in with this girl, or what's going on?" Because I feel like you guys are moving kind of fast. And so he was like, "No, I'm gonna have my own place. I'm gonna do my thing, and I'm not." He didn't want to get married anymore. He had been married several times, but then at the funeral, when I spoke to her, she was like, we were moving in together. We were going to get married. I mean, he told me an exact opposite story of the story that he shared with her. Now, was she lying? Probably
Yeah,
not.
grief. Yeah, yeah,
Probably not,
grief.
right? He was moving there, but my point to that is sometimes men will, whether they mean it or not, sell a dream or make statements that are performative, or maybe they mean it at the time, and then will tell other people, other men, maybe friends, a totally different story. So it's possible that maybe Meg agreed to this house because there were some plans in the future for them to be married or something like that. And we just never know because I've witnessed
Yeah,
firsthand two sides of the same story.
yeah, that's a real story too. That's real because I feel like that happens quite often with people. You telling one story, then you telling you
Mhm.
another. You acting one way in front of your friends, you acting another way because you haven't maybe truths. Maybe you didn't want to say, "Yo, I'm just going down to Atlanta, and this is just what I need." I don't want to say nothing to nobody because then I'm seen a certain way, or vice versa. I don't want to think I'm coming down there. And if I got an apartment I'm looking at. Yeah, you never know. It's one of the things you just know. You're just like, oh damn, my homeboy. You know what I mean? But that's the game of telephone called life. Yeah,
Mhm.
You know,
for
it's
sure.
funny, and Tony knows as well. When I started dating the person I'm dating now, he is a very giving person. Like, he likes to take care of people. He does all the big things. He's way flashier than I am in terms of gift giving.
Mhm.
And Tony will tell you in the beginning, I was like, why is he doing all of this? And I even said it to him, like, you don't have to do anything for me. So I had a problem accepting things early on in our relationship. Now, let me tell you, he's really consistent, very consistent. 2 years now. We talked about him
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
on
I
the other,
remember. Yeah, yeah.
same guy. He's
Nice,
still the
nice.
same person he was from day one. But in the beginning, I was like, why are you giving me that? Why are you doing
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
I'm skeptical like that though. And I don't
Mm,
accept big gifts early on because we knew. We're
yeah,
new. Why are we doing
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That was the only thing I saw with the house.
We hear about them like they were considered doing girlfriend, boyfriend type things or giving girlfriend, boyfriend type gifts. We hear that a lot. Again, it's the reason why I hammer home that point is
Yeah.
like if you don't have a confirmed word from somebody with act like corresponding action and that lines up over time, I don't know. It feels like murky waters.
You gotta have an alignment. We say alignment over time. You get
Mm,
alignment and you need time. You need time. 'Cause
Observe.
yeah,
Are
because
they
people can
doing
say
everything that their word that they gave you?
yeah.
yeah. A lot of performative, a lot of gestures. Even people, they make it about sex. Even after the sex, they're just keeping you around because maybe that's just what I think I should do because I
Right.
don't just want to hit it and quit it. But now you didn't drag something out that might have been 3 months to 9 months to a year. Now there's like a drop. And it's because, you don't have the communication skills or the courage or the whatever you want to say to really deal with me and deal with our situation hospitably and with humanity, honoring my feelings and who I am in this space that I'm sharing with you. Even if you want to break up, I ain't gonna, go crazy and burn your house down. I just tell me that we're not together and do it in a way that makes me still realize, like my dignity's intact.
Yeah. Which I'm assuming they were both doing because they knew about each other's past and they chose
Yeah.
to see past it and still engage.
Yeah, I think he was definitely defending her. I think so. And I think there was something there. I just think, like, you know my opinion on it. I cut you off
The
though, Jay.
their relationship was fast and furious, though. I mean,
Yeah.
Whirlwind.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
you
I
know,
really do.
And I
yeah.
was telling Heath earlier, I think people in that kind of income bracket, they do the same thing we do, just on a more luxurious and lavish level. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've cupcaked with a girl over a couple of months and, been hot and heavy. And obviously, I'm sure you guys have all experienced it too, where it's like, you may have a hot and heavy 6 months and you're thinking it's going to go somewhere. And then, as Heath talked about, the smoke clears, all the butterflies then flew out your stomach and the rose colored glasses are off. And you're like, wait a minute, I don't know if I really want to do real life with this person. It's been great to live up here in the clouds and enjoy this vibe and have this fun, but I'm not really. And I mean, I think, from what I've seen, we championed Lori Harvey when she did it. We championed Meg when she did it. So I guess, listen, if Clay's doing the same thing and exercising his options to find whatever, peace be unto you, my bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what? But even with Lori Harvey, I think again, like she got a lot of criticism. She gets a lot of criticism for leaving a relationship and going on to the next one. You know what I mean? She gets a lot. People, when she was dating
Michael B.
Yes. And she walked away from that relationship and it wasn't too much longer. She was, seeing someone else. And there was a lot of talk about that. There were a bunch of women, me especially, who was championing her. I was like, good for her. Let her, she's not happy. She should leave out and be with somebody else. And then, there were mostly men there and some women who were, saying she was a 304
Or she fumbled the bag, which
she fumbled.
Yeah.
Even after he won the Oscar, I was hearing some.
Well, they said she texted me, but you just don't know what to believe online.
Yeah,
How do you know
don't.
that? How do you know that?
Right.
Yeah.
His agent's like, let me just put this out on anonymous Twitter that she texted and he ghosted her.
Well, let me tell you guys, from being, Toni, you may know this too, but from being in like big media, people do have moles at phone companies that they will pay for phone records. And people
Really?
will, yes, bro. There's stuff like that happens.
Well, that goes back to the certain family we mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I was saying to Jamie earlier is that certain family that we mentioned earlier, once you date in that family, Ray J was saying that he had to hide. He had to put on disguises like Sherlock Holmes to walk outside because he felt like that family had their eyes on him. And I was telling him that there's a new book out in less than a year, the Fort Bragg cartel. And it's basically about Delta Force individuals who was like one of the elite special forces who got into dealing drugs for the cartel. Because what do you do with all these skills? You're a logistics operator, you understand organization, and you're efficient at killing people. Where do you go? McDonald's? When you retire? Cartel's like, we'll pay you $200,000 every 6 months to shepherd this guy and kill this guy. And you're like, well, okay, that's $400,000. It's more than I was making in the army or special forces. And so I said, I'm sure in the big media there are people who used to be part of spy networks who now loan out their services to individuals, $20,000, $30,000, $10,000, and say, hey, listen, if you need someone followed or tracked, you need someone be told, hey, listen, next time I see you on this block again, this white van's got something for you. All right, I'm gonna roll off. Yeah, then roll off. I mentioned Paul Allen when he was alive, guy who started Microsoft. He had a boat that also had a submarine that could, if you needed to escape somewhere, it was run by ex-Navy SEALs. So these ideas of people having moles and having high operators or intelligence agents,
very plausible.
Definitely, yeah, very plausible.
Yeah.
That someone could get someone followed. And so, because sometimes you hear people in media talking like Ray J was talking about his body count numbers, 10,000, and his math was all off. I don't know he must have been high. His math was crazy.
You don't think it was 10,000?
He was trying to
Why
beat
would
out
you share that anyway?
This is part of the double standard, Stacey.
He said he had 5,000.
It's part of the double
in my
standard,
mind, I'm like,
Stacey.
ew, 10,000.
It's part of the double standard, Stacey.
I guess.
The society
guess.
at large don't look at men like that in a negative way.
Yeah, because think about a woman said, I had 5,000 threesomes. You'd be like, most people would be like, all right, excuse me. Is this what this is? Excuse me, and get up. He said 5,000 threesomes, and I literally thought, like, that's impossible. mathematically, I wasn't making a judgment. I was making a judgment on his math. Like, no, wait a minute, 5,000 threesomes. Like, what? Like, is that every other day? But the point is, I absolutely do agree that maybe people could be leaking information. But back to Lori Harvey, I think, some of the women who are getting these critiques, the Lori Harveys, people, and like Nia Long recently was like, yo, just shut up, eat it, and sign the NDA.
Please
And
let me.
Saw that.
She
I was
say?
surprised.
I didn't
My
see it. What
God.
did she say?
So she was
interviewed with
the
Kiki.
interview with Kiki Palmer.
I saw
And
some of it.
she was
Yeah.
talking about being single and stuff like that. She's like, I like young boys, but they talk too much. So just shut up and eat it and sign that NDA.
No words
Said, you need
necessary.
to poke my finger and just little blood stamp right there.
Good for her.
Good for her.
Good for her. Go, girl.
Yeah.
You go, girl.
Yeah, but she's like, sign the NDA. And so even Kiki Palmer's like, I'm too busy. Same thing, she said she's raising, she's got a little one. So does Kiki. I got kids. I'm busy. I'm media moguling. I'm building production companies. I mean, Kiki's another one she's going to go super far. I don't got time to be in these relationships where we sharing a house and, I'm in France for Cannes and you over here. I'm doing IM boosters thing and you over here. Look, it is what it is. When we're not together, we have an agreement that, as long as you play safe and I play safe in the sandbox, when we come back, we're together. But when we're not together, we're not together.
If all hearts and minds agree on that.
Right.
Yeah, Toni knows that from church. And govern yourselves accordingly. Yeah, govern yourselves accordingly. I think a lot of people, even with the whole thing when, I don't know if you saw that episode we did where Jay and I talked about the Chris Brown kiss with the woman, where the wife would kiss Chris Brown.
I saw the kiss, but I didn't see you guys talking about it. But
yeah, but Jay made a point. He's like, listen, couples have arrangements. No one wants to talk about this because, again, puritanical culture and how you be judged. There are a couple, I had to tell some people at work, there are people who on Tuesday, I'm out with so-and-so, Thursday, you're out with so-and-so, weekends for us and the family and the kids. And that's how they operate. Now, they're not going to show that to you because you're going to judge them. You're going to label them. You're going to say, okay, well, Judgment Day, I know you're going down the escalator, so I don't need to be around you. The smell of brimstone, I can smell it already. So they're not going to tell you this is how we get down. So the husband, made a face, but maybe, well, we know she could have had a conversation with him and say, hey, if Chris Brown ends up on the stage, I'm going to be doing as most as I can.
And that's their agreement.
Yeah.
Whether it was their agreement or not, again, I keep bringing up the same thing, which is the outrage that was all over social media over the fact that she was basically kissing Chris Brown, right? I mean, and it's only because she's the woman and she was there with her man. I just think if it were the other way around, it would not be the same. Have this conversation. It would be a forgotten thing on social media. I'm sure.
I'll say this.
That's never allowed to cheat publicly. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a very public thing she did. And I think when you do something like that in public, it naturally goes, damn, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Your wife is right there, homie. Or, and I think what it was so public. And some of the people I know were like, yo, like my friends were telling me, if you, like even me, if you had a conversation with me beforehand, that's one thing. But you don't say anything, next thing you know, you up there, he's look like he can pull out his pants and put his joint in your mouth. And it's like,
and I got to see it with everybody else on social media. You didn't talk
now
to
it's a
me
conversation. That's a conversation.
Problem with that.
I think we all would.
Because Janet Jackson used to bring guys on stage.
Mm-hmm. 3 to 1.
Talking about it. If it had been, they would have been like, it was Meg Thee Stallion on the stage. I mean, what's the guy supposed to do?
Who do you think would have been saying that, though? Do you think men would have been saying it or men and women?
Men would have been saying. Men.
So then, yeah, I think the same thing is happening now. Then, if that's the case.
But here's the thing and this is, I talked to Jimmy about race. I think what happens is criticism, sometimes the way these, my opinion, biases work is a white guy steals, a black guy steals. They both get caught. They both have to go to jail. The black guy gets more time. So there's still these touch points of discipline that happen. It's that it weighs heavier. I think there would have been outrage. I just think it weighs heavier on a woman when she's doing, like, how could a wife do that? Whereas, like you're saying, why did you do that in front of your wife? Now, look at the language. How could a wife do that versus why did you do that
in front of your wife? Exactly. Right. It's almost like the behavior is expected of men. But it's not expected of women.
So some of these things become so subtle. Now, the outrage is the same. That's why I said I think there would be outrage. I think that I don't know if the outrage would be equal, but there would be outrage. It just would be one be like, how dare you be a woman and do that to your husband? How dare you? Whereas, how dare you do that in front of her, knowing
It
damn
would be
well you
framed
probably do it
differently.
every night, 2 nights on Sunday and an extra one on Saturday.
Yeah.
You know,
The framing
I
would
think
definitely.
yeah, the framing would
Yeah,
be
the framing
different.
would be
The
different.
outrage would be different, but that's how pernicious some of these things are because you think it's the same because outrage is happening, but once you scratch below the surface, you're like, wait a minute, you're weighing this differently. Or you're not even unconscious to how it's happening. Because I know for me, Janet Jackson, when we were growing up in the 90s, used to bring men on and she would do
Yeah.
a strip tease and stuff like, and she wouldn't kiss, but she would go in. And I'm sure she felt a couple of boners once or twice.
More than a few.
More than a few.
Because,
Yeah.
She had them
and
strapped down onto the.
And some wet panties too. I'm sure she's
oh yeah,
she's
yeah,
gotten all
yeah.
the reactions.
Yeah. So, and I remember back in the day, you don't know who was married, who wasn't, but social media wasn't existing. But I think if I did that and my wife later on, I'd be getting some paperwork. Sign here. It's right there outside the Madison Square Garden. Lawyer come right to, excuse me, you've been served.
To your point about Chris Brown, now, I don't know, is he dating anybody? Because if he is, there was no outrage, as far as, who he's seeing and him kissing a perfect stranger. I mean, my outrage was neither one of y'all know each other. You
Yeah,
and
and
you
that's
and
what I'm
you are
wondering.
From a sexual health
swapping.
standpoint,
Yes,
absolutely.
you are swapping.
Fit.
Yes.
Toni, me and you are right there. Because that's what pissed me off.
All up in her jaws.
Yes. But like, who is he seeing, and why are we not talking about that? You know what I mean? He was the
can't
one
keep
in
up.
control of the whole thing.
Can't keep up.
No, Toni, I'm right there with you. To me, it was more of a public health issue. I told Jay that.
Yeah.
It was a public health issue.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know where your mouth's been and I don't know what you're carrying. And now you come home to me, hey, listen, we're going to have to run down to doctor.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's what makes it morally questionable. Like you said earlier, these people are adults. Why are adults making the frivolous decision to just swap saliva like that?
Yes.
Why are adults making the decisions to and Heath and I say this all the time. We really try not to moralize a lot of behavior or just a
Yeah.
lot of things. But to what I was saying earlier, in my heart, I feel like there's right and there's wrong. And I think a lot of us have that idea in our hearts and in our minds. And when we see certain things, that's the response to it. Like, I personally told Heath earlier, I don't like the fact that people are bringing up her past. Because once you open up her past, you have to do the same thing to him. And if you're going to do the same thing with them, you have to keep the same standard with everybody. So now we got to judge everybody's. We got to open up everybody's treasure trove. And who wants to do that? Who wants to have to, live and die by a decision they made 10, 20 years ago? Who
Agreed.
wants to have to do that?
It's really unfair. And we're really adamant on that. Like, you have no right to tell someone that, like, to what you said, Stacy, our initial conversation, you're not worthy of love, honor, respect. Every human being's worthy of that. Every human being deserves to be seen. Every human being is entitled to dignity. And we missed the thread on that with some of these things. And so there was a reaction by Dr. Raquel Martin to Kev on Stage, because Dr. Raquel Martin was supporting Kev on Stage, because Kev on Stage says, when it comes to LGBTQ community, I lead with love. And she responded by saying, all y'all who are saying, not my God this, my God that. So what, someone who's gay or a lesbian needs to be killed?
Right.
And she was like, some of y'all say you serve God, but don't you realize maybe at the end of the day, you're serving the devil? Shout out to Dr. Raquel Martin for that.
Mm-hmm.
Big fact.
And so, this is what I'm talking about. We're so quick to say, I'll kill you. You deserve death. And we're never really managing. You want to talk about karma and karmic debt, what that's costing you in this life and what that's costing you in the next life. Because you're talking about someone who sucked a dick. I'm talking about you murdered unalive 10 or 15 people.
Yeah.
Now, you did your time and your penance, and you want to be looked at as evolved, but you won't pass that forward to someone else. Like, come on, y'all. We got to get real about this.
And again, I really do believe a lot of how we deal with when a society is working is the control over women's bodies. I just seen it time and time again. And I just, like I told you about that woman I worked with. It's like, how you know it's a Christian? Why? Because you see girls going wild? It's just girls going wild. But other nations have it too. Your women are out of line.
I think
They're out of pocket.
the story, around Meg really comes down to controlling her sexuality, if you ask me. I mean, I feel like that's, if you peel back the layers,
Mm.
that, it's all about controlling her sexuality and women as a whole. Men want, what do they say? A wife at home and a freak in the bed, or what, however the stupid saying goes. Yet the women who were, how's the saying go? You guys know.
Lady in the
Yeah, yeah.
streets.
Lady
Freak
in
in
the
the sheets.
Yeah,
streets.
lady in the streets.
And a freak in the sheets, yeah.
Yeah.
Freak in the bed, yeah.
Thank you for that correction. Yes. But yet the freaks get no love. You know what I'm saying? It's like you got to be the information that men say, or the messaging is so freaking confusing for women. I think it's like women don't know what y'all want.
Be sexy, but not too sexy.
I mean, it says
Not too
a
sexy.
lady in the streets and a freak in the sheets. That's
So
too
we're telling you what we
We're
want.
telling you what we want. But I think sometimes people segment that and keep it segmented. They don't just want the freak or just the lady. They want both. Men are willing to integrate that and see you as that if you present yourself as that. I'm not saying all do.
But if you take it back to Meg, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut. We've seen her be a lady. We've seen her be a freak. Yet the freak part gets
All the attention.
scrutinized.
But it's being scrutinized by people who don't have a chance with her. That's what I was making the distinction as.
Yeah.
The people who choose to engage with her are obviously looking past that because they're still choosing to engage with her. So to me, all of that outside noise is really just noise. That's the reason why I say I don't think it's fair for people to bring that up, because clearly it didn't matter to him. So like, why are
Or
y'all
Party.
making
Or
Party or
Yeah.
Lukaku or G-Eazy or whoever else is on the list?
I think it was the other dude from Chicago, but Taylor something. Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
it is, and for some of those might have just been temporary relationships, and some of it just maybe hookups, and some of it may have been more permanent relationships that just didn't work out. I think a lot of these people are, I'm gonna be very frank with you, busy. I think a lot of these relationships, it's hard to have a relationship with one person's two people powerhouse traveling, moving around a lot. That's a very difficult relationship. You need intermediaries to help you bind a family together. Look at the Obamas. They had Michelle Obama's mom there. Like you, and both of them were powerhouses during his administration and tenure. You need intermediaries to help keep the glue there, especially when children are involved. And I just think we don't have those larger conversations. And some of it is, Chris Rock said this when he dropped his top 5 movie about 10 years ago. He goes, if poor people in this country really knew how well rich people were, how well off rich people really were, there'd be riots every day. There'd be riots. I mean, what we see is a very stylized luxury version. But if you really saw the access and the help,
Ease of life.
yeah, I mean, think about Rihanna. She's a billionaire and probably gets free stuff more than anyone who needs the free stuff gets.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're right. And some people wear them and rock with it. So I think that we're dealing with people who don't even have a reference point for the type of lifestyle. Like we said, I looked at their house and now I couldn't see it all. It didn't look like no $33 million house. They looked like they bought a $1.22 million house. Like I told Jay, maybe his account was like, you need to put that money somewhere because you're hemorrhaging, your cash is all over. You bought a $2 million house, then you'll sell it. Maybe it'd be 2.5, 2.6 by the time they turn around and sell it the way houses are going. And then someone's like, I bought the house that Klay and Meg used to live in, and now you get to brag, and I'll pay extra for that. So, then to find out when you sell the house, man, they were in this house probably like 4 or 5 times together. That's it. Because they're busy.
Yeah, got
They're
stuff that they're doing.
busy.
Yeah. That's also what makes me feel like it's hard to believe that relationship was real. That's
Well, you think it was just something
Media move.
something they were.
I think they liked each other for whatever reasons. And like Heath said, it was a whirlwind romance. They were enjoying each other's company. This is how people trick at that level, going on yachts and buying each other's cribs and jewelry and all that kind of stuff, and being at all these different red carpets and events. And I think real life kicked in, and I don't know what the conversation was. I'm still a little on the fence because of the post. Like, owning narrative is really big. As a publicist, as a, comm specialist, I look at stuff like that. And it really could have been, we chose to go our separate ways and that was it. But the narrative that she put out, it goes against everything she said. And that was on her page prior to. Like, if this was the most kind man who treated you like you'd never been treated before and you were just so happy to have him in your life, how does that go to
Horrible mood swings?
and I stayed with you through all of that? Like, it just doesn't add up to me, especially when, if you look at the timeline, most of what we saw from them was like 6 months or prior. So the most that we saw about them was like in the first 6 months of them being together, from like July to the end of the year.
November.
And so I'm like, if all of that time y'all were exclusive, why would he need to say anything about monogamy if y'all were already exclusive? I just don't understand why someone would take a home and do all of that stuff if someone did not solidify their interest. And by solidify, I mean put a ring on it and claim you publicly.
I mean, I hear you. To me, it seems very plausible, all of it. You know what I mean? I have friends that don't have hardly nowhere near the type of money. And I see, relationships going so fast and moving in and, all on vacation. You just met each other like a couple days ago. Like I see that in my own. So it to me, it's plausible. And I think that both things could be true for Meg. I mean, she could have had the best relationship ever and he still be moody. People in relationships, you make excuses for the other person because sometimes you say, I have all these things that are going well. And yeah, he did have a bad game and he is a little moody. So can I accept this when I have all these other great things? Like it seemed like she was very happy in her relationship with him. So it's plausible that she could have, somebody who loved and cared about her, or she was having the best relationship ever. And then he'd be an asshole after a basketball game.
Or just be moody. Because sometimes, just be moody. And
That
like I was
in
telling
all
him.
caps. Horrible.
Say horrible. You're right about that.
All
But
caps.
she was also hurt, right? So a lot of that message
Yeah, you're right.
was wrapped up in her pain
And her
and
pain. Yeah.
relationship ending, the way that it did.
Yeah, you're right.
I wondered that too, because I'm one of the moody, like I was telling him, she's an artist, he's a high performance athlete. Them dudes get moody. I was telling him about a story about Peyton Manning when he was supposed to, the first Super Bowl he went to, he lost. They said he was out with his wife in Mexico at a resort. And he was just like, someone was like, he was just staring off the space while his wife was talking to him. Like he was still almost there. Like, fuck, I can't believe. And it's Peyton Manning. He's known for being competitive. Him and Eli would be, and his wife goes, you know what? I just want to pay for the dinner. And she puts the credit card down. She goes, it's the same card that goes to the same account. He goes, trust me, I noticed. Then he snapped out of it, made that little quip about his wife spending money. But the point is, I think a lot of people, when you're dealing with a high performance athlete, they're very moody. I had a friend here who was working with teachers here in the DOE, was working with an assistant principal and talked about a conversation she had with her husband, who was just like, yo, she was so busy. He was like, you don't have 5 minutes for me to talk? And she's like, no, I don't. That's how busy. I mean, because the DOE really sucks you in over here. But I think some people are that busy. And then so you say, well, I stuck by you while I didn't get to speak to you until the weekends. And it's just like, well, it wasn't like she was yelling and screaming at you, but she's telling you this is how busy I am and you feel rejected, which is natural. So like, you're right. You don't know where that is. I think more will come out. I told Jay, I don't think he's going to do a post. I think he'll go on a podcast. There's a lot of former basketball stars who have podcasts now, Up in Smoke and Pivot podcast.
All the smoke, yeah.
Yeah, All the Smoke, sorry. And I think he'll come out and probably tell his story there where he could feel a little bit more paced and a little bit more staged and thoughtful, probably media trained about what he's going to say. Even if he's going to tell his truth, I think it's going to be really coached.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which means it's not true.
You think so? Yeah. I just think this is, high profile breakups, and these come with their own bag of tricks for us to be so lucky.
Super bad.
I didn't care until I saw the conversations about Meg. I didn't care. You see celebrities break up all the time.
Yeah, same here.
I was like, I didn't care.
Yeah.
I cared about what was being said, though. And that, as we already said, it just struck me. And when I hear, when we're faced with these kinds of like situations that are public and, the discourse is what it is, I always think as a mom, okay, I am raising a 14-year-old, raising a young man, and I want him to be different. Let me just tell y'all how I'm working so hard to raise like a respectable man who values women, who values himself, so that he doesn't look for that value in relationships, so that he has discernment, when he's dealing with people, to know who loves him for who he is and who just wants something from him. Like, I'm really making it a point to make him aware of those kinds of things. We do still live in this patriarchal system, and I don't want it to grab hold of him to make him think that whatever the money he makes is what he is. You know what I mean? What he does is what he is. You know, whatever he's worth, it's what's in his bank account. I don't want him to grow up thinking like that. I don't want him to treat women like they're second class citizens. And, you know, all of those things. So that's what I get out of it. Like, what can I teach my son? Like, what can I from this situation? He don't know who Meg Thee Stallion is.
You
He
probably
might know
say it's
Klay
a
because he
keep
follows
picture.
basketball, but he
Yeah.
doesn't know about this situation. But I frame it in a way that makes sense for him.
I think that's beautiful, Stacy. Number one, I applaud you. I will tell you, as a man who I think is more the adult version of what you of where your son is at. The one thing my mom did do for me, I tell people all the time, my mom never read Bell Hooks or Judith Butler. She can't talk about, gender construction or anything of those popular academic terms around gender identity, gender politics, or sex politics in America in the last 50 years. But one of the things that she did do for me is she was honest. So there's a lot that I know. My aunts were honest with me about experiences they went through, everything from what happened to her being during my aunt postpartum depression to my uncle cheating on her because of that. And right, I had to hear those stories. And those stories are important for normalizing and humanizing experiences to your son. Telling stories of pain, telling stories of triumph, even telling stories when you played a dude, when you were wrong. Because I hear that from my mom too. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? She'd be like, yeah, I did that. I really shouldn't have done that. And, I was wilding out. She's told me those stories. Like, yeah, kind of played homeboy and, I just wasn't into him. He was kind of corny and this and the third. But, I shouldn't have done that. That's important too, because then you see, all right, everyone's out here selling it. And those stories have stuck with me throughout my life, where the women in my life have told me stories of abuse, but they've also told me stories of, yeah, I was dating this guy and then I slept with him. And it's like, I really, they've told me all that. And those are stories that I hold inviolate in my heart because they allowed me to humanize women. That was number one. So stories from the women in my family, whether my sisters or my aunts or my mom. The other thing I think that helped me, and I tell Jay this all the time, was when I was abstinent. It allowed me to decouple sex from women and start to engage women as I engage my other friends. Not perfectly, because biases always abound. They're part of the architecture of the brain and a part of the soup we swim in and live in. But allowing you to see like that you don't always have to gratify yourself with a woman. There's other ways of enjoying a woman's company besides just sex. And that's allowed me to have these thriving friendships that I've mentioned with women. I know Jay's, it's the same thing from what he shared with me. Those are two factors I think that are important for a young man to break out of certain programming that he could easily fall into and slip into, even unbeknownst to him, right? No one owes you anything. So like the incel community, oh, she didn't want to go out with me. She didn't want to go out with you.
Right.
It's a no, right? And another woman will tell you yes, so it's just important for all of us to have these opportunities, that a no is a no and doesn't mean anything about you. Jay told me this 20 years ago about rejection. Someone rejecting you doesn't mean you don't have what you say you have. It just means they don't see it in you.
They don't see it.
So, those are just important factors. Tell them your stories, be honest as much as you can. I don't know the nature of your relationship. Some things my mom waited till I got to 18 or 20 to tell me. Some things she would tell me, I'll tell you that when you're 18 or 20. And then she honored her word. She was like, okay, this happened because I did this and this happened because of that. And, I was moving a certain way or this person was moving a certain way. And she's told me stories where she felt threatened by men in intimate situations, right? So these are all important stories that you need to share. In my
Been
opinion,
encouraging him to
when it's
have female friends as well as male friends
yeah, you should.
at this age.
Yeah, it may not stick now.
Yeah.
It may not stick now, but it'll stick later. I think other things will be important for him, but I'm glad you're encouraging him, to do that. I think a lot of this is about sharing stories, telling stories, humanizing each other. Again, we don't humanize each other a lot.
Yes, we
You
don't.
know, yeah. Like I mentioned that Michael Beasley story. I was so broken up with tears when I heard him talk like that. How much he loved his mother, but he was hurt that she had denied him his father. Then to come back in the relationship and she's dying. And he said, my mom didn't deserve that. He's like, my mom didn't deserve that. So he still had love for her. He was just upset. He was just trying to deal with his emotions. And like he talks about people labeled him as having character issues. Listening to people's stories really do change who you are. I always tell Jay, we have our macro perspectives, which is, oh, I'm Black Lives Matter, I'm pro this, I'm pro that. What I say is when you start to implement those strategies or those ideologies on a micro level, you learn you have to be adaptable. I had a conservative woman who used to listen to Rush Limbaugh go to teach in a poor area in Virginia, and she didn't come off her values, but she had to admit, oh, I did see when I started working here, there was some weird things going on. And you start to realize all those kind of super narratives that you just top down on people, like it don't mean anything. When you have to deal in a real relationship and it's interpersonal, you just can't be parroting some pundit or some right-wing, left-wing, progressive, whatever. You got to deal with the real world of who this person is and how they're managing their life. And then you feel it, you start to see it doesn't fit that neatly. It's not supposed to, because this is your life and you should be trying to engage that person as they are for who they are. You could tell somebody, yo, you know I'm a Christian and you're no sex before marriage. Then you meet somebody, you're like, yo, wait a minute. You start hearing stories and, you know, my husband didn't sleep with me for 5 years, or she didn't sleep with me for 8 years, and I was alone, and I was hungry, and I was in the street, and I had to. Then you start saying, would you do that? It's easy to stand on what you want to stand on when you're standing in your silo. But when you got to get out the building and get in the real world, you got to be adaptable. That doesn't mean you come off your convictions. You know, okay, turn, maybe this is on 10, bring this down to 7, bring that down to 2, and I got to start managing, because I would never do that. You weren't living it. You weren't living it. You weren't living in the slums. You weren't living without a refrigerator. So how you know what you would do? Because you weren't there. And that's where people start to realize, all right, I got some reimagination I have to do, some real connecting I have to do. You know what I mean? You didn't live it. You didn't live it. We do a lot of judging. You know, this whole conversation started, and you wasn't there. You wasn't there. And if you had to do it, it'd be different. You know, whether you're talking about men who are doing these pregnancy simulators and they see how much pain women are in, or like that woman who did that experiment where she died by suicide, but she lived as a man for a year. She said it was a very lonely experience. She goes,
She
I would go
died?
on date. Yeah.
On a
The
live.
Caucasian lady.
Did not
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah, the Caucasian lady who, I forgot her name, but she wrote a whole book where she lived as a man for a year. You know, she cut her hair. She was like, it was lonely. I was getting rejected a lot. You know, she's like, you know, and again, I think to us, I'm inured to that. I expect to get rejected if I were to meet women. It's just part of it. But when you're just new to you start to realize like, oh, you got to go through a lot. That doesn't mean men don't have it better than women. I'm just saying experiences. I'm not even trying to rank them. It's just something you start to, all right, you could talk about your grandparents. I see us do this as Black people. I'm not my ancestors. I got hands. What do you think they had? But if hadn't they done what they had to do, you wouldn't be here. If they hadn't eaten shit from Miss Ann and them, you wouldn't be here. How dare you think that somehow now you're emboldened to be violent, and somehow like they didn't have their itch to be violent, but they were thinking about your great great grandmother who they had in the basket, and they was just trying to get to safety. That was the imperative. That was the mission. So that's why I think a lot of this can help with the gender war, just talking to each other. But we've kind of lost that art a little bit.
Yeah.
Definitely.
These conversations definitely need more understanding. I always tell Heath, it's cool to do the call out, but conversations can't end with the call out, because it's just going to be a back and forth, a perpetual, well, you did this and you did this and y'all are like this and y'all are like this. And it's like, okay, let's not moralize the behavior. Let's ask more questions. Why are y'all like this? Let's come together and have more understanding. Why is this behavior present? Why do you feel the need to try and control? Why do you feel the need to, only look at me as a provider and a protector? Why are we only looking at each other as sexual? Let's have more questions and dialogue and understanding. But yeah, the war is, we're fatigued.
And last thing I'll say, Stacy, to you is, I know you mentioned being married before and all that. When he's ready, you can have that conversation with him. My mom did. You know, my biological father was killed, but she was able to say, and she's older now, so she was like, yo, I look back at that relationship and there was a lot she wasn't getting from my father for very real reasons. But she was like, yo, there's some things I was doing I could have done better. Right? So it's just, you're seeing the holistic conversation. You're seeing like, nah, you know what? And listen, she's always going to be a little heavier on him than she is to me. I expect that. But she's like, yo, man, if I knew what I knew now, I would have done some things different. I could see where I was, shortcutting it and maybe making it difficult for him to be himself, even though I disagreed with him. That's real, right? You may eventually be able to have that relationship with him. True. And that's important. so that he sees that, like, my mom is accountable, my mom is trying, my mom is honest. All that helped me to listen to other women's experiences. So when I sat at the table I worked at and women talked, I was able to be like, damn, do I do that at my home to my wife? Or when my cousin talked about objectification, realizing I objectify my wife, even though my cousin was talking about something else. But the point was, are you using the person you're with? And what it was is, there are times where you'll rely on your spouse or your partner for their greatness, great skills, but that comes with annoyances. So if you have a person who's very meticulous about cleaning, you ain't got a problem with everything's clean, but then when you put a thing down that's not on the coaster and they're cleaning it, or they ask you to put something away, you got an issue because you don't want to be talked to. Well, you can't have it both ways.
Right.
They're keeping it clean. This is their method for keeping it clean. Integrating and being a little bit kinder about people that you're dating, and recognizing they're a great provider, but they come home at 7:00 at night. Well, they work 12 hours a day to provide. Now, if they need to spend some more time, then get creative, guys. Like, it ain't got to be, oh, you're like this. It's how can we work together?
Right.
So, again, when he's age appropriate. Trust me, my mom
Right.
waited till she was 18 or 20. She started telling, no, I did this and I did that. I was like, all right, I see why you waited. I couldn't probably handle that at 10 years old.
Definitely. And
Certain stories was I was like, oh, okay, cool. She was telling me a story the other day. She's like, yeah, when I first became a nurse, there was a lady there. She knew Joe Namath, and we all went out, and then we were all there, and then the cops got called, and I'm like, yo, where is this? Real quick. She kind of kept it light though, but it's always good to hear her tell her side of things.
That's good advice.
Jimmy, you're on mute.
I said if Broadway Joe was involved, I know where that story
Yeah,
was
that's
going.
why I was just like, where's this going? She kept it light though. I don't know what she did, and I didn't ask, but my mom's a woman, right? She's a woman who's had, experiences, and I don't judge her. She's still my mom. But your son needs to hear that out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that he sees you as a mom, a woman, and a human being.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Flaws and all. Again, at an appropriate level, because now you need him. You're not gonna be coming back at me when I tell you to clean your room. You're gonna clean your room.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear all
I
that.
know. He'd be
Well,
throwing stories back at me.
Yeah, exactly. But when Dad told you, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Clean your room. Clean, because you got to keep even with my mom now, I always have kept a line of respect there, recognizing, right? Apostle Paul said, charity breeds contempt. Yo, someone doing a slide and privilege to you to share their heart. That's not rearranging the relationship. That's just letting them know, giving you another piece of themselves. You're still the mom now. That's why I said everything has to be timed. He may not be mature enough till he's 25 or 26.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My mom chose 18 because of that's where she was at. I think she was just thinking, you're old enough to vote and you're old enough to hear some things. But, you may choose differently.
Yeah.
Because he has questions, as I think all young men do have questions.
About cleaning that room, though. Listen, it's
taking them showers after basketball.
It's benevolence
on
the belt.
Field.
You let me know which one you want.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to take care of that. Guys, as always, this has been a pleasure.
Yes,
I don't think we're going to use all this. It's just good content.
And good convo, like you said.
Absolutely.
You guys are doing a great job at
You are.
Yes, keeping the conversation, going about these gender issues.
Yeah.
And also the way that you guys continue to ask questions. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's important that you're always seeking understanding. And I love that you guys do that on your podcast. So keep up the good work.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. We always appreciate you guys. You guys are powerhouses, and we always enjoy the dialogue, your points of view, your life experiences you shared with us. Some of the things you said to us, I mentioned the whole, like I said, the submission. We need to be traveling. I mentioned, like I said, I bring that up quite often. And just, your stories and your heart, they always tell people they remain inviolate in my heart. And Stacy, if you ever have a question about son stuff, let me know. I'm always a text away, always down for a conversation to encourage and, show love. I think it's, my relation with my mom is unique, and I always try to spread that love because I've seen it pay off dividends for me 1,000-fold.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate you both. Toni had sent me a clip of you walking down the street. You were talking about honesty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, let me reach out to them.
Watch all you got, all your stuff. So that's something.
Yeah.
We see you. We always shout you out like, "Oh, you saw Toni like the clip?"
Yeah. And then Jay was like, "Oh, their real estate joint is popping off." I was like, "I'm so happy for them because I know you guys are, at the cusp of making some major changes to provide for yourselves and your families, and that's just a wonderful story."
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it is.
Yeah, yeah. And you guys keep doing that, please, because the real estate thing and just I think being moguls and being business people is a narrative that just, it's important to have. I'm sure there's plenty of Black women who want to be where you guys are at, who look like you, have similar life experiences. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Always a pleasure.
And on
Yes,
Yes,
that
yes,
note,
likewise.
indeed. Guys, have a great night, and you'll let us know.
Yes, another episode of Save the Date. Thank you guys for listening. Always a great conversation with Toni and Stacy from the Old School Love Lounge. Follow them on TikTok. They have lots to say and talk about from their vantage point. And we could follow us at Save the Date Now, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Until next time, I'm Heath.
Jamie, y'all.
Take care.